This week on Low Budget Binge, we've got viruses, aliens, slashers, found footage, and dark family secrets. Let's start binging. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Low Budget Binge is where we venture down the path less traveled and look at low budget, no budget, and sometimes international films that never get that top billing you see with the usual Hollywood fare. I'll indicate in the review down below where you can find these films along with their trailers. Here we go. Forgotten Trash, plus The Apparition of Miss Delaware, is new on-demand and digital download. It's directed and written by Brandon Espana. A down-and-out film student, Daniel, played by Connor McDonald, happens upon a man in the woods, played by Steve Kassan. The man says he's making a movie and needs a new cameraman. The naive Daniel jumps at the opportunity for some quick cash and a promise of fame. But when he finds out the man is actually an alien whose race feed on entertainment, and that the entertainment involves hunting and killing humans, Daniel must make the ultimate ethical choice for fame. Shot on video, Forgotten Trash plays as a throwback to the days of the all-popular video store and the backyard filmmaking that spawned it. Yes, this is a film that is poorly lit, not acted with recognizable names, and filled with shoddy sound. There's even one scene where most of the dialogue is drowned out because of a plane passing overhead. Still, what is evident in every frame is a pure love of horror cinema. It's something mainstream films can't harness. This film captures that dream of making a film no matter how little money one might have. Through a very rudimentary film, that message of cinema love is announced loud and clear. The two leads, Connor McDonald and Steve Kassan, work well together. I especially liked Kassan's otherworldly stiffness and tense line delivery as the alien in human skin. There's also a soliloquy from McDonald that may not be the most fluid acting, but the message behind the hardship of trying to make it as a filmmaker really transcend the film itself. In Forgotten Trash, the interstellar entertainment industry is representative of how far away Daniel and the filmmaker's dreams of making it seem to be. The final act reveals the true face of the alien. While everything else looks DIY, the alien makeup itself looks absolutely fantastic. Wonderfully lit and creatively shot, the money was put into these effects, and it was well spent. While there is a turn in Daniel's character that feels a little forced, the story itself is well done, and I really dug the way it all wrapped up. Clocking in at just under an hour, Forgotten Trash communicates a universally understood message of struggle to achieve one's goals, and does so without overreaching past what the budget permits. Forgotten Trash is also paired with another DIY shot-on-video short called The Apparition and Miss Delaware, which pays homage to Michael Myers' ghost disguise from the original Halloween, but sets it in a completely different story. Again, filmmaker Brandon Espana works shot-on-video magic, making The Apparition look ominous and creepy. Those who appreciate do-it-yourself and shot-on-video classics should seek out these highly creative chillers. It's basically what Low Budget Binge is all about in one wonderful no-budget flick. Girl with a Straight Razor is new on special edition Blu-ray from Darkside Releasing. The director and writer is Chris Alexander. A young woman named Ali Chappelle is tormented by not being able to see her daughter, and relieves her misery by stalking and killing women with a straight razor. This is another Chris Alexander film, which means it's art-housey and heavily reliant on setting a mood and communicating an emotion, and less interested in telling an easy, mainstream narrative. Alexander definitely channels his inner Giallo with Girl with a Straight Razor, in the way his camera captures vivid colors, in the way he uses wonderful synth music, and of course the use of a straight razor as a weapon of choice. This is a stunning movie to watch and let soak in as Alexander's camera lingers on close-ups of Chappelle and punctuates these long takes with scenes of her stalking her victims as they walk alone on the street. Alexander's films are not going to be for everyone. There are long moments where he simply lets the camera soak in the scene and the posed people in it. There's also a very simple story being told in a very slow and meticulous manner. Alexander's films are an experience, not unlike Jess Franco's lesbian vampire movies of the late 60s and early 70s. While Alexander seems to have moved past the vampire genre, his most notable films, Blood for Arena, Queen of Blood, and Blood Dynasty, focused mainly on the female vampire subject matter. Alexander still celebrates the juxtaposition of beauty and death in every film he makes. With Girl with a Straight Razor, Alexander shows a new talent with capturing that elusive giallo feel and mixing it with a staged style of shot composition reminiscent of some of Kubrick's more iconic set pieces. I've enjoyed watching Alexander grow as a filmmaker and can't wait to see what genre and style he takes on next. The Whole Truth is new, streaming on Netflix. It's directed by Wisit Sasanatieng and written by Abishek J. Bajaj. When their mother is put in a coma after a car accident, two teenagers are surprised to encounter grandparents they never knew they had. When they force the kids to stay with them, they notice a hole in the wall leading to the apartment next door. But when they look in the hole, it's a dark reflection of the apartment they live in, with a strange, pale girl vomiting blood and moving about creepily. Stranger than that, the grandparents seem to be unable to see the hole, even when the teens point it out to them. All of this leads to a dark and complex family history. Sometimes, as an American writer, reviewing an international film is difficult, or at least I find it difficult sometimes. While I don't mind subtitles, it often does distract me from paying attention to the subtler things like acting quality and line delivery when I don't speak the language the film is made in. It's even more difficult when I watch Netflix, as they offer a dubbed version, which I occasionally watch so as not to be distracted by the subtitles and get more out of the film itself. That said, the voiceover actors can often leave good performances sounding really clunky and cheesy. I'm honestly not sure if that's the case with The Whole Truth, but wow, did the dubbing and over-the-top physical reactions of the Thai actors make it seem like this is an extremely badly acted movie. Every reaction is cranked up to 11 and met with raised eyebrows and bulging surprise eyes, sometimes accompanied with a full-on agape mouth. The translations of the script seemed to lack any kind of nuance and went more for broad, generalized dialogue than anything with an ounce of flourish. The vast and sweeping soap opera score didn't help to make the acting any subtler. So whether it was the acting itself, the dubbing, or the translation between the two, The Whole Truth's cast does a horrible job at trying to tell this complex tale. There are some small moments of supernatural horror that work in The Whole Truth. The visage of the little girl next door is creepy as shit, adding a visceral quality to her by having her continuously vomiting blood. They also used an actual little girl for the role, which gives the monster depth and weight, and even though the blood vomiting gets quite ludicrous the more it's repeated, it is a pretty gross and effective way of distinguishing her from the typical long-haired J-horror ghost girl we've seen a million times. I really like the idea that the kids can see the hole and the grandparents can't. But again, the further they push it, the more farcical it gets. It's as if the filmmakers really don't understand that less is more in these cases, and along with the lackluster acting, it instilled unintentional laughter instead of the intended horror and drama. The Whole Truth tries to tell an epic tale that spans generations, but lacks the nuance to be successful at it. Parts of it remind you of M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit, as the eccentric grandparents immediately seem suspicious. I honestly am at a standstill trying to review The Whole Truth because I don't know if I'm reviewing the translation or the movie itself. Because I don't really have this issue with other international horror films, I'm leaning towards this is just a badly realized and acted film with potentially good ideas. Also, something that seems to be a requirement for Netflix films, the 2-hour runtime is just too long, as this movie would have worked with a good 45 minutes snipped from it. There's a subplot about the sister trying to become the captain of the cheerleading squad that goes absolutely nowhere. Maybe this one will work for you, but for me, despite some gut-churningly good Ghost Girl scenes and an admittedly interesting set of twists and turns, The Whole Truth lacks a lot of the restraint to tell this story convincingly and effectively. Redwoods is new on-demand, Blu-ray, and streaming on Amazon Prime, and it can be also found on Tubi. It's directed by Danko and written by Danko and Ted Voron. Redwoods is another found footage film. about a group of YouTubers who venture into a heavily forested area to explore houses that have been overcome by nature in the Appalachian territory. A group sets out to meet another group of investigators who they lost contact with after they discovered houses decimated by age and disuse, and a few houses that have been burned down. Meanwhile, someone is following this group, making their own movie with much more diabolical intent. One of the biggest hiccups in Redwoods is the acting. While most of the time the interactions feel natural between members of the group, as the plot thickens and gets more complicated, a bit more of an acting stretch is required and some of the actors just can't reach it. The leader, Cross, played by Michael Barnett, has a huge emotional arc, and while he capably communicates the paranoia, fear, loss, and rage, there are quiet moments where he just isn't convincing. This goes for most of the other cast as well, especially Jack, played by Jacqueline Ware, who's the team's medium and is given quite a lot of hokey mystic feelings dialogue to mutter in times of stress. I actually blame the script for most of this. A lot of the twists and turns that occur in Redwoods feel clunky and at times forced. There's a pretty big leap where a childhood memory comes back to haunt Cross that I thought was just a throwaway line but became the main point of the film. It's an interesting decision, but definitely takes a lot of spontaneity away from the story as it requires someone to plan about 20 steps ahead in order for the master plot to develop. I would have preferred that this be a random encounter with horror than an A-team-like plan that came together, much to the love of a psychopath. I initially had issue with the way the film utilized music during the key scenes, but this music was composed of simple drum beats that increased in speed to amp up the tension. While this definitely takes me out of a film when outside orchestral and synth beats are used, these musical beats are worked into the story as the person stalking the group is actually making a movie from the footage he steals from each YouTuber. So while he accumulates each camera, he adds the footage to his film, along with a drum that actually shows up in frame. This allows the film to cheat a little, as the longer the footage plays out, the more it becomes the stalker's produced movie, utilizing outside editing equipment, musical cues, and multiple cuts between different cameras. I found this to be a very creative way to overcome some of the found footage genre's more cumbersome hurdles. The motivation to keep filming at first is to capture new and exciting things for the explorers' YouTube channels. So of course they want to capture everything. That's why they don't drop the camera and get the hell out of there. Later, when the shit hits fanward, it's more like everyone is running around in such a frantic state that they just forget that they're still filming. These guys are used to filming everything they encounter on their trips, so it feels more natural that they don't drop the expensive equipment and bolt. For the most part, Redwoods avoids a lot of the dumb cliches, choosing to use new equipment like drones and multiple cameras to come up with some interesting and downright scary scenes. One of the main things I want to commend Redwoods is that it keeps the pace moving at a breathtaking clip and provides all kinds of thrills and scares all the way through. While found footage films are notorious for being cheaply made, some real effort was put into Redwoods to orchestrate some creative and exciting sequences involving car crashes, a burning house, and all kinds of creepy settings from the overgrown natural environment to the maze-like buildings the groups are exploring. Redwoods is not your typical found footage film. Sure, it's on a low budget, but man, do the filmmakers go for the gold. I love the film for its aspiration to shoot for the moon, with multiple levels of tension, intrigue, emotional struggle, hardcore action, and gritty and grimy slasher tropes. Not all of them work, and I think some of the revelations could have occurred a little smoother had the script been polished a bit more. But having seen plenty of found footage films, Redwoods stands out as one that reaches for the stars and beyond. It's got some scrapes and bumps, but if you're a fan of the found footage genre, there's a lot to like about Redwoods, and enough to overlook the rough spots. Finally, there's Haul, which is new on demand and digital download from Black Fawn Distribution. It's directed by Francesco Giannini and written by Francesco Giannini, Derrick Adams, and Adam Kolodny. A deadly airborne virus spreads through a single floor of a hotel as the guests unaffected by it attempt to make their way through a gauntlet of horrors to escape. Hall focuses on a number of guests affected by the virus in different ways. A pregnant woman named Naomi, played by Yumiko Shaku, flees a controlling husband in Japan to America to protect her child. An exhausted wife, Val, played by Carolina Bartzak, attempts to escape her abusive husband with her daughter, Kelly, played by Bailey Thane. And a mysterious man in black, played by Julian Richings, has dubious ties to the origin of the deadly virus. Haul is an ambitious film that tells a big story on a small stage. Most of the action takes place within a single hallway before, during, and after the virus has spread. This makes for a film that feels as if it would make for an awesome stage play, as its singular locale really does lend a lot to the tension and horror going on. The film is wonderfully acted by all involved. Shaku is likable as Naomi, and you really are rooting for her to make it through the ordeal given the way her struggle was realized. But its central dilemma of Val, played by Bartzak, and her daughter Kelly, played by Thane, that is the most compelling. In very few scenes, the film offers a broad story of abuse that resonates just as deadly as the virus itself. Both Bartzak and the Carol Ann-looking Thane are strong in their roles. If there's an issue with Hall, it feels as if it is a bit padded in the middle portion of the film. There's a lot of wriggling around on the floor, groaning as the virus-addled person is crawling towards the camera. This works to a point, and the subtle but compelling effects are helped quite a bit, but the more it is shown, the less impact it has. At one point, Val is separated from Kelly, and strangely, there seems to be a lack of urgency on Val's part to get to her daughter amidst the plague. At another point, another character has to almost remind her to go get her daughter, which to me, given what was shown prior with the character, felt very atypical. Personally, Hallway of Zombies and Twisted Ankle aside, nothing would stop me from losing focus on getting my kid. But Hall remains an extremely strong piece of one-location horror cinema. Director Francesco Giannini does a fantastic job of juggling characters and suspense. Hall takes present-day issues and twists them to terrifying lengths, resulting in an excruciating and harrowing small-scale pandemic horror story. That'll be it for today. Please chime in down below in the comments and let me know how on the nose or mind-numbingly wrong I am, or you can counter with your own review. So guys, you know how YouTube works. I'd love to be able to dedicate more time to this channel. I'm not monetized yet, so if you want to help me out, remember to hit all the pertinent bells and whistles down below. Want some spooky comics to read? I have 2 new horror comic book trade paperbacks you should look out for. Both Gravetrancers and Pirouette, collecting never-before-published issues, can be found in only the finest of comic book shops. If you're looking for written reviews, you can find them on my website, mlmillerwrites.com. If you really want to show your support, I also have a Patreon page at mlmiller. Look for the link to my Patreon page down below. Thank you so much for your time, and take care.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're